So what are some of the things that determine if we're in a buyer's market versus a seller's market? So this is all based on supply and demand. It is a simple economic principle. What this is basically inventory and buyer demand in the market. So a buyer's market is essentially when there is a lot of inventory available in a specific area and not enough buyers, not enough demand for that inventory. For example, there's an area of town where there is 50 listings on the market, but there's only 5 buyers looking in that area. So that area would be in a very heavy buyer's market because there's only 5 buyers that are looking in that area, but there's 50 active competition in that area. So the supply greatly outweighs the demand in that area, and vice versa. In a seller's market, there is a heavy number of demand or buyers and a low amount of inventory in the market. So during the pandemic, when rates were at a historic low, which by the way, we'll probably never see rates again that low. We never have in the past, and that was an anomaly. So don't get excited that we'll ever see that again. But during the pandemic, when the rates were under 3%, that created a huge demand in the market because the rates were so low that so many buyers wanted to capitalize on the rates being low, which created a high demand of interest and a high demand of buyers looking. And that created a shortage of inventory because as quickly as homes were coming on the market, they were being snapped up just as fast. So we could not keep homes and inventory available. And it was the same concept for the automobile market due to the chips not being available because of manufacturing, and same concept for a lot of different industries such as the construction market. And this is what causes prices to rise, is because when demand becomes so high and there's not enough availability of that commodity, prices go up because demand has gone up. So this is what determines whether we're in a buyer's or seller's market, is simply supply and demand. So currently, what our statistics say is that if we have between 1 to 3 months of inventory, and we have ways to calculate this, it's called an absorption rate. If we have between 1 to 3 months of inventory in any particular area or market, then we would be considered to be in a low inventory seller's market. If we're between 4 to 6 months of inventory in a particular market, that would be a stable market. And then if we're between 6 or plus or more months of inventory in any particular market, that is a heavy buyer's market. So in most of our area of Houston, we are currently somewhere between 3 to 5 months of inventory. So we're actually more of a stable market, although it feels like a heavy buyer's market because we're coming out of, having been in such a crazy market previously, but we're also at a much higher price point than we were prior to the pandemic. So home prices have gone up significantly since before 2020. So just to give you some insight on how that works, I wanted you to have a clear understanding on supply and demand and why prices go up and how inflation impacts the housing market and why that has occurred with how it has affected supply and demand here.